it seems like it almost that you have so many ideas that this could have gone so off the rails and into oblivion of not a book, like just a bunch of stories. Like, how did you put the book together?
So when I started this, the thing that was most important to me was that when I'm done, that it's good and that it's done the right way. I want to work with book people and I want to work with business people. I'll handle the fishing side. So in terms of like the stories and the content, the damn thing kept growing. It took longer to do than I thought. And I kept coming back to, well, if it's going to be a good book, if it's going to be a proper book, it would include this. Yeah. So at some point I said, I have to stop saying that because it's good and proper enough. So
It's going to be your life's work here sooner
that's
or
it. I was
later.
like, I can't do this. I started last July of 2023. I just got the proof finished at the printer last week. So 15 months, I guess. But so I started writing it, and it was actually my computer guy. He's like, hey, man, you should write a book. I was like, man, I don't write a book. And he's like, no, you really should. So I was like, okay, well, actually, I've been thinking about this book on travel fishing. So I had thought about books before, but I let all the details stop me from doing it because of all the things that go. So this time I'm like, well, I'm just going to write it, and I'll figure it all out as I go. So navigated like the publishing landscape and came to the conclusion that like I would do it on my own and run it through my website. And that was sort of at the advice of a publisher that I talked to who was a client of my computer guy, and he's been doing it a long time. And he's like, this is what I would suggest. Think about this. I'm like, okay, that's great. So then I was like, well, I need it to look good. So I hired a book designer who is super awesome. And he's been around for a long time. And he worked for big publishing houses. And he's been on his own for 10 or 15 years. And he actually laid out Stephen Hawking's second book. And
Really?
so
Wow.
I hired him, A Briefer History of Time. And so I hired him and I was like, hey, man, I have the fishing stuff handled, but like, I just need this book to look good for a book guy. I mean, I provided him all the text and all the pictures, and he laid it out, and and then I also hired her to kind of go through and sense of everything, in terms of like organization, typos, formatting, all of that kind of stuff. And she actually used to edit Entrepreneur Magazine, and so I tried to do everything the right way and hire good people who experienced and they do, And so she came from a place that wasn't fishing. So we, had this joke. I said, well, if there's a fishing term that you don't understand, let's assume that it's correct. If there's a joke that goes farther than you would take it, let's leave that. But if there's any like regular English words that are typos or used improperly, so it was good. And so I wound up, for both the editor and the designer, I wound up paying them like more than I thought because the damn thing kept growing, but it's okay because it turned out great. Yeah, it just kept growing and growing and growing. But then I was like, put it all together into some kind of thing that makes sense. I thought it was going to be 400 pages, and I thought that was like gigantic. It grew to be 588 pages, but wow. It's okay. I mean, it's good. It's great. I'm happy. I'm like over the moon about how it is. Like, I can promise that if somebody buys it, they'll like it. There's nothing like it. It's something that's needed. I mean, I talked to Ray Rocher. I profiled him in the charter directory. He's been a charter captain in Miami for 30 years. He's a good buddy of mine. He's in the IGFA Hall of Fame. And when I called him and told him about the book, you know what he said? It's about time someone did that.
Nice.
So it's applied and useful. So like in the introduction, there's a piece that says, I wrote the book on travel fishing with the hope that it might bring the same joy, wonder, and fulfillment to your life that it's brought to mine. And now
Nice.
My girls are like 8 and 9, and I get to do the same thing for them, and it's wonderful.